Welcome, ladies and gents. Don't forget to hit a right hook on that like button and that subscribe button too. Let's talk boxing. Alexander Usyk, the former Olympic gold medalist, undisputed cruiserweight king, and current undefeated unified heavyweight champion of the world, seeks to add another chapter to his ever-expanding legacy. A man destined for the Hall of Fame. This weekend, when he marches into the city of 12 islands and 112 bridges in Wrocław, Poland, he will experience the closest thing he's had to a homecoming fight since becoming a boxing star. Poland is a close ally of neighbouring Ukraine and has been a destination that many of Usyk's compatriots have settled in since that conflict began. Legions of those countrymen shall be roaring their hero's name when he engages in battle with the heavy-hitting natural heavyweight Daniel Dynamite Dubois. But for those seeking to welcome Usyk with a procession, there also comes the expectation of an annihilation. This adds a burden onto Usyk, an additional pressure on his shoulders, and pressure can have a destructive habit. Under the right circumstance, she can provoke miscalculations and errors. Champions, warriors, politicians, men of power, and even men of principle have all fallen into her wily old traps over the years. Could Alexander Usyk suffer such a fate? Do his own words in a recent interview suggest that he might be prone to being provoked into making mistakes for this one particular fight? The type of mistakes that only pressure can seduce. Back in 2020, Usyk had been criticised for his inability to emulate the likes of Fury and White and to stop Derek Chisora. He was asked by Dev Sani of Queensbury whether he was playing possum in that fight, allowing Derek to have success as a mere ruse to lure Anthony Joshua into the fight. Usyk paused for dramatic effect and nonchalantly confessed, yes, this is true. But is this a true confession of a cunning chess-playing tactic? Or does this actually portray a potential trap that Usyk is placing at his own feet going into the fight against Daniel Dubois? Let's consider the former before I elaborate on the latter. Prior to that fight, Usyk was a mandatory challenger to the then unified champion Anthony Joshua, and the Cossack was unhappy with the financial offer dangled in front of him for a shot at those glistening belts. He released a public video demanding, "More money, Eddie, more money," whilst Eddie had begun proclaiming that they couldn't agree on splits. Eddie began to threaten that an option was for AJ to drop the belts and move on to whatever other fights Joshua wanted to make. But AJ would go on to be ringside to watch his friend Chisora go after Usyk like a rabid dog in a near-empty arena, back in those draconian days of the imposed bubble. Del Boy, the dog, had clearly made Usyk the cat very uncomfortable on that eerie evening. Discomfort does not equate to defeat, however. But whilst I personally felt Usyk clearly won the fight, 9 rounds to 3, 8 rounds to 4, that sort of region, there were some observers at ringside who felt Chisora may have done enough. Biased as they might have been, Kugan Cassius even claimed that Usyk's own manager, Alex Krasiuk, had the fight a draw, an accusation that Krasiuk never went on to deny. Meanwhile, Joshua stared into the camera, conveying this air of confidence as if to say, is this the supposed super skilled man that some of you think has a chance of taking my belts? If this was a ruse by Usyk, it was played perfectly. Like a Central American chichlid, which plays dead in the sea to tempt other fish into come in and taking bites out of its seemingly lifeless carcass, only for the chichlid to spring back into life and devour the opportunistic fish. Perhaps Usyk should no longer be nicknamed the cat, but the Central American chichlid. And if Krasiuk genuinely started telling people I had it a draw, maybe he was aided by his conniving manager and promoter in pushing this idea that Usyk ain't all that. However, there's a flip side to that coin. Usyk's interview with Sani is not the only time that Usyk has made the claim to letting another heavyweight off the hook. Following his first victory over Anthony Joshua under the bright lights at Tottenham Stadium, a demanding Ukrainian journalist had challenged Alexander as to why he wasn't able to stop the Brit despite having him reeling late on. Usyk replied, "Why are you so bloodthirsty? This is victory and everything is fine. Why is it necessary for a person to fall? He has relatives, friends, a mother and a father. This is a big chunk of health if a person falls. I'm not for that. I had no objective to knock him out because my trainer in my corner pushed me not to do that." So if Usyk did not stop Chisora because of some Central American chichlid tactic, what explains his position regarding not being able to stop AJ? Did he suddenly adopt the moniker of Alexander the Merciful? After all, the Cossack champ did not seem conflicted about brutally bouncing Belyu's head off the canvas when it was clear that the Liverpudlian strengths had already waned. Alexander the Merciful was in fact markedly and maliciously merciless. In fact, Usyk has stopped the majority of the men he shared a ring with, 13 of his 20 vanquished victims. He wasn't thinking of their quote-unquote relatives, friends, mothers and fathers when he was stopping them. So why would he seemingly sway away from the truth? Being a legend is mutually exclusive from knockout ratios. In the last 8 years of Floyd Mayweather's career, for example, the only knockouts he had were against a man that wasn't a boxer in Conor McGregor, and Victor Ortiz, who he sucker punched into oblivion when Victor wasn't looking. So why wouldn't Usyk just confidently say, I tried to stop AJ, I had him hurt late on, but he's a warrior and he survived. If I had longer, I believe I would have taken him out. Why instead did he try to justify his inability to stop AJ? And why is this potentially relevant to the Dubois fight? Well, first, let me point you to a couple of quotes. Mike Tyson, when looking back at his career and talking of his opponents, once said, most guys are pretty much intimidated. They lost the fight before they even got hit. I knew the art of skullduggery. I knew how to beat these guys psychologically before I even got into the ring with them. Tyson's philosophy mirrors that of the Chinese military strategist and general Sun Tzu, who wrote on the art of war around 500 BC. Tzu stated the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. In other words, before a fighter even gets into the ring, he can be beaten or subdued. Sun Tzu would also state that you must appear weak when you are strong and strong when you are weak. In other words, let the enemy think that you're there for the taking, when in reality you're prepared to devour and destroy. But you must also be aware to hide your weaknesses and portray strength when you are weak. Tzu likely meant this in the sense that by exuding confidence and perceived power, enemies will not risk attacking you because they'll fear you, as they are oblivious to your weaknesses. But if we reapply this logic to boxing, then perhaps it can also mean that even if you have an area of your game that some might consider weak, i.e. you're not a big powerful puncher, portray yourself in a manner where they still think you are. Let them assume that you are merciful or tactical rather than lacking in heavy artillery. That might allow you to intimidate and perhaps beat opponents before they even engage in battle. This guy is so good, he doesn't even have to take risks and put his foot on the gas, but he's got more gears to go to. He could knock me out if he really wanted to, but he doesn't have to. And after all, this might be effective because we've seen Daniel Dubois being plagued by demons and doubts following the defeat at the hands of the Juggernaut. In his last fight against Kevin Lorena, you even had Shane McGuigan having to demand that he continues to fight after sustaining a knee injury. If Dubois is indeed susceptible to self-doubt, then magnifying the task that faces him might affect Dubois' perception of his own ability to win. But on the other hand, if Usyk is willing to play possum to lure opponents in, one could argue that a logical move would not have been to reveal his hand regarding his display against Chisora. If he genuinely acted like a chichlid in that fight, then wouldn't it make more sense to do the same thing again in a bid to lure in Tyson Fury? After all, if you think that Fury doesn't want to take the risk for the fight, wouldn't making yourself appear to be weak work potentially in luring him out to fight you? Well, by revealing his hand, he's taken that away as a ploy for the future. So from a tactical perspective, that's not very smart. So therefore, we're left with a simple fact. Usyk has claimed to have let off his last two opponents for differing reasons, but his history does not seem to support his claims. He is willing to be malicious with a whole host of other fighters, but with AJ, he's suddenly merciful. Therefore, if he is lying, perhaps the only motive that could explain why he would lie is pride. Maybe he feels embarrassed that his only heavyweight stoppage came against Witherspoon. If that is the case, then that unease is married with the pressure of putting on a show during this procession, an event that is in essence a homecoming. Putting on a show might mean chasing the stoppage, particularly as Team Usyk has previously admitted that they were concerned that Dubois would pull out due to not being able to recover in time from his injury. So they might see this as not only a straightforward fight against a lesser guy, but one that is compromised in terms of both not being fully fit, but also psychologically plagued with doubts. Could this lead to Usyk taking more risks than usual as he chases a stoppage for his adoring fans, holding his feet for a millisecond longer than he should when his best option would be to move, operating in a pocket that Daniel Dubois is desperate to create? If so, Usyk's pride and yearning to be celebrated as a man capable of stopping heavyweights might mean that he's seduced by the pressure to appease the crowd. This would equate to taking dangerous risks in battle against a younger, naturally bigger, heavy-handed, hungry opponent who will do his utmost to silence the doubters and break the body of the 36-year-old legend. Is a shockwave about to be sent through the sport? Or will this be just another day of mastery as the cat dances his way to yet another magnificent display whilst he's serenaded by the cacophony created by his faithful, fervent fans? Time, my friends, will reveal all. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on that subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.